This is Maureen Kafkas, the Brain BS coach, here to tell you about the episode today. Today I'm going to share tools with you to separate fact from fiction in your brain. We're going to learn about brain drains. We're going to learn about telling the difference between circumstances and thoughts. And we're going to learn about the mind-body connection between feelings and thoughts. Episode number 123 of the Brain BS podcast, Separating Fact from Fiction. Do you want more out of your life but not exactly sure what that might be? Are you longing for something but can't quite put your finger on what it is? That is the universe speaking to you, and it is time to listen up. I'm your host, Maureen Kafkas, the Brain BS coach. I created the Brain BS podcast to help people define what success means to them and show them how to get it. I help you to let go of fear and doubt and prepare your nervous system for success. I show you how to understand your own energy and to trust yourself to make all the decisions. If you are ready to go inward and stop looking outside yourself for all the answers, this is the podcast for you. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the Brain BS podcast. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm happy that you're back too. If you haven't listened to episode 122 called Understanding Brain BS, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that podcast episode before we dive into this one. You could also go way back to listen to a lot of different podcast episodes that really meant a lot to me, and I think they have a lot of important information from the last couple years. But I'm kind of changing things this year, and I'm sort of starting over and getting back to the basics so that I can review how I learned how to manage my mind and achieve the peace of mind and confidence and sense of success that I have now that I did not always have, I promise you. And I'm trying to figure out how to show it to you guys, how to teach it in my course, what to share, what not to share. And then reviewing the basics is so important, but at what point does it become repetitive and sort of mundane and sort of like inspire you to think, well, this isn't anything I haven't already heard before. So I'm doing a little balancing act, and I'm doing it for myself too, because I really want to understand and break it down in order to be able to show a lot of other people, but also to benefit myself. Because sometimes, even though this is the primary focus of my life, sometimes even I forget to use it. So in the first episode, I talked about understanding brain BS. And in this episode, what we're going to talk about is being able to decipher fact from fiction in your mind. I want to begin by reminding you that our brain has about 60,000 thoughts a day, and the majority of them are not true. But we believe the majority of them, and it causes us a lot of suffering. So that's why it's important to understand that there's a difference between fact and fiction. There's circumstances in life that are just factual and everybody would agree on. And then there's thoughts, and we all have different ones. We all have a different way of looking at things and a different way of perceiving things. And what one person thinks and believes is not what another person thinks and believes. This causes a lot of problems with our relationships with other people. And it causes us a lot of problems with the way we're feeling on a regular basis and the way we torment ourselves with our thoughts. The first step in getting some clarity about what's going on in that noggin of yours is what I call a brain drain. So the only thing that you need here is a pen and some paper. And yes, you do need to write this stuff down. You can't type it. You actually need to write it with your hand, because there's evidence that says that writing by hand creates much more activity in the sensory motor parts of your brain. Get the pen, get the paper, and the first thing I want you to do, and everybody does this a little differently, but the way I like to do it is I want you to make a list of all the thoughts that you're having right now, and I want you to write them down. You can even pause if you want during this podcast episode. You can pause right now. I want you to write down every single thought you're having, every single thought. No censoring, no editing, just get it out of your head onto paper. But I want it in a list format, and I want you to leave a little bit of room at the end of the thought so that we can do the next step, okay? So I want you, or not the next step after that. Anyway, get it all out onto paper, take your time, everything. You'll feel it too. You'll know when you used up all your thoughts and you got them all out on paper, because you're going to feel better already just by getting all that crap out of your head. So get your list, take your time. Your list can be 15 pages long or it can be a page long. But please don't tell me that you can't think of any thoughts in your head, because then I just want you to start writing. Okay, just write anything, and then stuff will start coming to you. So I will also put an example of this in the show notes of the podcast episode. I think I can do this. I've never done this before, but I'm going to put an example of what it looks like. And I call this a brain drain, by the way. I don't know if I actually said that. It's a brain drain. So it's just getting everything out of your head onto paper so that you can relax your brain a little bit and not have to keep thinking about all those thoughts and remembering things and going back to them. And then you can see it in front of you on a piece of paper. Okay, so after you finish the list, you have it numbered and you have a little space at the end. Then I want you to do the next step, and that's where we start to separate the fact from the fiction. I want you to go through all those numbers, every single one of them, and circle the ones that you think are thoughts and underline the ones that you think are factual. Now, we need to review what thoughts are versus circumstances and the difference between fact and fiction. I've mentioned this before and I'm going to mention it again. In order for something to be factual, everybody has to agree on it. Some people think a nice day is when it's cozy and cold and you can sit by the fire. And other people think a nice day is when you're outside and you can be walking and it's warm and there's a nice breeze. We all have different ideas and different ways of looking at things. So we need to be able to tell the difference between something that's factual and something that we've just believed for so long and for so many years, and that we actually have come to think it's factual and it's not. It's just a belief. That's all a belief is. It's a thought that you have over and over again. So I want you to go through the list, circle the thoughts, underline the facts. I'm going to give you a few examples to give you an idea of how to tell the difference. If you're thinking my mother-in-law is an effing bitch, that's a thought. No matter how much evidence you have that you can list and you can share with us, it's still not factual that she's an effing bitch. That is just your take on her. She might disagree with you, and there might be other people in her life that absolutely adore her and don't think that she's one. Another example, my dog is the best dog. I should say dogs for me because I have two of them. Of course I think they're the best dogs, and they're well behaved and they rarely bark, and they'll sit there for days when it's rainy and cold. They literally do not have to go for walks. They don't need anything. They don't need attention. They don't play fetch. They're like pretty awesome dogs. So I think my dogs are the best dogs ever. But that is my thought about my dogs. That's actually not factual. I hate to break it to all you dog owners. We all think that we have the best dogs. Another example, and this is one that really illustrates the point, I think. Murder is bad. Even though almost all of us would agree that murder is bad, clearly there's a lot of people that don't, because there's a lot of people that commit murder and don't even think about it, quite honestly. So murder per se, yes, it seems bad, but it's not factual because not everybody agrees on it. Murder is a crime punishable by law. That's a fact in the United States. There might be other places in the world where it's not, but in the United States, it is punishable by law. That is factual. So we can all agree on that. So then you're going to underline that one. All right, go through the whole list, circle the thoughts, underline the facts, and take your time with this. This is critical. Anytime we have problems in life, it's usually because we're believing a thought and we think it's factual and it's actually not. So I can't stress enough the importance of being able to tell the difference. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to stop your brain from thinking the way it does, but having that awareness and understanding that your thought is providing you, or your brain is providing you with a thought that isn't true, is everything. It changes everything with the way you deal with people. Not right away, but it's the first step, awareness. So go through the list and do all that. And you can pause it right now and do it as we're listening to the podcast episode if you want, and then come back and we're going to do the third step. The third step is, I told you to leave a little space at the end of the thought, because I want you to write down how it makes you feel. We're just doing this with the thoughts. We're not doing it with the facts. I want you to write down how it makes you feel thinking this thought. What goes on in your body? What emotion are you feeling? And it's one word. I don't want you to say, well, I feel like it's kind of scary, because that's actually a thought. We're talking about an emotion here, a vibration in your body that you feel because you're having this thought. Because this mind-body connection thing is so huge. And I didn't even know about it before I started doing this work. And that's why I'm kind of tying it in early, because I think it's super important to understand those feelings, those emotions, and how they're tied to our thoughts. So write the word. I will put a list of emotions in the show notes, because a lot of people, some people are really in tune with their emotions and not with their thoughts. And some people are really in tune with their thoughts and not their emotions. So I'm going to put a list of emotions in there that you can use to guide you in choosing. I mean, you don't have to use the ones on my list. You can use whichever ones you want if certain ones come up to you. But so when you're finished with this exercise of deciphering fact from fiction, you're going to have a whole list of thoughts. They're going to be numbered. Then they're either going to be underlined or circled, depending on whether they're thoughts or factual. You're going to circle the thoughts. You're going to underline the facts. And then after each one that is a thought, you're going to put one word, an emotion, from the list I give to you or one that you come up with on your own, and you're going to put that right next to it. And then I want you to take a deep breath, exhale, and I want you to look at what's in front of you. These thoughts that are in front of you are what are driving your life, because you think that you have no choice of what's going on in your mind. You think it's not possible to manage your mind, and you think that everything that comes up in your brain is true. And now you're learning, oh my God, it's not true. It's not. Now, I want to stop here for just 1 second, because if there's any coaches that are listening to this podcast episode, or any people who have done thought work before and they think they know all this information, been there, done that, I want you to really look at what I'm saying today. I want you to go and write down all the thoughts that are going on in your mind. And I want to see if you're separating the fact from fiction when it comes to how you're running your business, or how you're handling your job, or how you're handling your relationship. Because I promise you, if you're suffering, if you don't feel good enough, if you're comparing and despairing with other people, and you're just in a negative place and you feel like shit, it's because of the way you're thinking. It's one thing to learn these tools and how to use them. It's a whole other different ball game to actually implement them into your life and use them consistently every day. It has to be a practice in order for it to be beneficial. This is what I want to stress to you. This thought work that we're reviewing seems basic, but it's really, I don't even know what the word is that I'm trying to say for it. It's basic, but it's not. It's everything. Learning to manage our minds really isn't that complicated. Our brain wants to make us think it is. Our mind and our ego wants us to think, oh, there's no way we can change. It's always going to be this way. It's going to offer us all the reasons why we can't do anything. It's our job not to listen to our brains. I know that seems crazy, right? But it really is. So this goes back to what I said in the previous episode, that our brains need supervision. Really, they need supervision. In fact, Brooke Castillo likens the primitive brain, the ego, to a toddler with a knife. You would never let a toddler run around with a knife. So that's the same thing that she's suggesting happens when you just let your brain go rampant and you don't manage it or do anything about it and you just let it lead you through life. When you see all these thoughts in front of you and you see what kind of feelings it's creating for you, and you actually look at the whole list and think about how you feel looking at it, what I'm hoping that you're going to experience is, oh my gosh, well, no wonder I feel this way. Look at how many times I have sad on my list by the thoughts that I'm having. Or look how many times I have horrible things to say about people. No wonder I'm feeling critical all the time. And you go through this list and it becomes evident to you why you feel the way you do, why you experience life the way you do. And what we really want to understand is, why are you choosing to do this? Well, actually, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Once you learn all this and what I'm teaching you, then the question is going to be, why are you choosing to approach your life like this when you know it's optional and you can look at it totally different? But right now, a lot of you don't even know that. Right now, you just think this is life and there is nothing that you can do about it. And, that's it. The beginning of this work is understanding that you actually can create something new in your life. You can create whatever it is that you want. But first, you have to understand how your brain is working in automatic mode. And that's what this exercise is all about. The brain drain gets all the thoughts onto paper. The separating fact from fiction tells you what's actually truthful and what's not. And then the third step is putting the emotion there so you understand why you're feeling the way you are. There's many more steps. There's a lot more involved. But I don't think we take enough time to sit in this place long enough, especially if you think about a certain person or situation or challenge that you're having in your life right now. I think that we think something's gone wrong when we feel terrible, when we're like in complete stress and overwhelm, or totally sad and in despair, or just raging with anger. We think that there's something wrong with us. But really, it's just a brain that's not being supervised. That's it. But we need to know how it needs to be supervised, and we need to get intimately familiar with our own brain BS and how it works. So the next episode, we're going to talk about the subconscious brain filters that we have, that we develop from very early on in our maturation, like from birth till like 7 years old. We just accept any thoughts that are given to us, any beliefs, and we adopt them as our own. And we don't even know that we did that because we're so young. And then we get older and we hold on to these thoughts, and a lot of them don't serve us. A lot of them came from our parents, from society, from conditioning, from all kinds of stuff. And they're really not truly who we are. We just don't realize that we can get rid of them if we want to. So the next episode is going to be about understanding brain filters and how they impact our lives, and finding some of our own themes for our own brain filters. So hold on to this list of thoughts that you just used, because we're going to use it in the next episode as well, when we look at the brain filters that we have going on in our mind that we're not even aware are there. And then once we do that, once we see some themes that we have going on and patterns with the way we're thinking, then we're going to do what I call deconstructing our brain BS. So I know this is a lot to take in, but it's doable. And I know it's doable because I did it. And yes, I have to keep coming back to it. And no, I'm not perfect. And no, I'm not supposed to be perfect. And it's all happening exactly the way it's supposed to. You're coming to this work exactly when you're supposed to. You're reviewing this work, if you've already come to it, exactly when you're supposed to. You're going to start implementing it every day and making it a bigger priority exactly when you're supposed to. And I'm going to help you do that. I also want to offer you that if you want to join the Brain BS podcast community on Facebook, you can go in there and you can show me your list where the thoughts and circumstances are, or if you have any questions about that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about that. This step of understanding the difference between our beliefs and our thoughts and what is actually quote unquote the truth and factual is something that is super, super important in this process of mastering our brain BS. It definitely requires some time to contemplate what I've told you today and to reflect on it. This is not something we rush through to get to the next step so that we can feel better, because when we know whenever that's happening, it's brain BS for sure. I know you learned something valuable here today, and I'll see you next episode. Thanks for being here and learning about brain BS. I hope you enjoyed listening to the episode as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. If you did, please take a little time to do a quick review, give me 5 stars, and share it with everyone you know. If you're actually interested in being on the podcast yourself or have questions about it, you can find me in the Brain BS podcast community on Facebook. See you next time.